Hey everyone, welcome to Patriot Result Box, where I give my commentary on this today as reported by the Wall Street Journal. First up, the United States government's considering in expanding the troop presence in the Middle East, as if there's not enough troops there already getting killed for a senseless, unending war. The number of troops being considered to send is 14,000 more. As if the military's not sapped enough already. I mean, don't have enough ships, and only an army of only 1.6 million. And now considering spending another 14,000 on the Middle East, more? Come on! It's allegedly to counter Iran, but can't we just blow up Iran? We blow up the government and be like, yay! We don't have to fight with we don't have to waste more troops on countering them anymore because the Iranian government is gone. It's a brilliant idea. Just get rid of it. Just get rid of the government, not the people. The government. Once they're gone, then peace cake. We don't have to, we don't have to send as many troops there anymore. Then there's the Trump administration is also tightening the work requirements for food stamps, and it's estimated by the U.S. Department of Agriculture that 223,000 people may become ineligible based on the new restrictions being put up by the Trump administration. So because he's been trying to institute more of these work for welfare programs, meaning that you can be on welfare if you're working. So I think we shouldn't have welfare at all because I support helping the needy, but I oppose funding the lazy. It's a system of welfare is essentially the Democrats' version of slavery, since they couldn't do it anymore after they couldn't do it anymore after the Civil War and after the Civil Rights Act. They couldn't use segregation anymore. And remember, LBJ said he's going to try to keep black people voting Democrat for 200 years, and then he aimed welfare programs at them by the Great Society. Coincidence? I think not. Poor people have been voting Democrat for, I think, as long as there's been a Democratic Party and poor people to vote for it. And guess what? They are still poor. What does that tell you? There's still poor people in the U.S., and they've been voting for Democrats this whole time. You think that there'd be no more poor people after all this time, but maybe it's a sign that Democratic policies just don't work. And if you're about to call President Trump or me heartless for the welfare thing, just remember, it seems weird that it's considered generous to take people's money and give it to others, wealth redistribution, but selfish. You want to keep the money that you make yourself. I want to keep my money to spend on me, not on other people. So I think that we shouldn't have welfare at all because it's not actually compassionate to steal money and give it to other people. It's just not at all. The Democrats are also drawing up the articles of impeachment now, so they're mulling over what to do. Like first they call it quid pro quo, now then it became bribery, then it became extortion. As I said before, problem with quid pro quo is that it literally means something for something, so it's not exactly a crime or description of one. Bribery, the deal never went through. The aid for investigation deal with Trump and Ukraine, that never went through. He just gave the aid for free. And extortion, he wasn't threatening the Ukrainian government. He asked them. He wasn't saying do this or I'll blow you up. He was saying do it. It was more like, do this and I'll give you aid. That's what it was. It wasn't, do this and I'll blow you up. But still, they're going to put down, extortion, bribery, whatever word they decide to use for that. Then they're also going to, and Rep. Al Green wanted to add racism, and he was mad that none of the impeachment witnesses were minorities. And it was the Democrats calling the witnesses, so he should be aiming his wrath at, his party. Right? But he's also one of the guys who said, we need to impeach him so he's not reelected. That's nuts. They have no, this, and AOC has said before, if the impeachment's about presenting a potentially disastrous outcome from occurring next year, i.e. Trump's reelection. That should tell you everything you need to know already. They're trying to overturn one election, 2016, so they can't lose the 2020 election. That's poor sportsmanship, and it's really shows, first of all, no confidence in the American voter, and Second, no care for their interests. And finally, no confidence in their own candidates because apparently they're so convinced their candidates suck. They know the only way to win is to impeach President Trump. So really, the Democratic presidential candidate shouldn't be applauding this. They should be enraged that their party doesn't even care. They don't even think they're good at what they're doing. There's another article about world news that sort of recaps the NATO summit. So this presents a list of all the countries that have that are meeting their share of GDP spending. Last year only 5 did. This year it's 9. Let's see the countries that have met their GDP spending requirements, which is they spend 2% of their GDP on defense. Let's see, there's the United States, Bulgaria, Greece, Estonia, the United Kingdom, Romania, Lithuania, Latvia, and Poland. But many of the members fall short. Like France is a little bit behind. So is like some of these countries like Bulgaria were pretty far behind, but then they surged ahead to over 3%. In fact, Bulgaria actually has, like, in terms of percentage wise, not actual dollars, because like the U.S. really smokes the rest of the world. Like as far as defense spending goes, like the U.S. spends more than the next 9 countries combined. That's in the world, not just NATO. But as far as GDP goes, the U.S. spends like about 3.5% of its GDP. Bulgaria is just over is about 3.2%, which makes them in NATO as far as percentage of their GDP second to the United States. Bulgaria, of all countries, and then some of them just barely over the 2% line, like Lithuania and Latvia, and then although Latvia looks like it's starting to slip, but then there's like Belgium and Canada are like hopelessly behind. Like Belgium doesn't even crack 1%, and part of the problem is they're spending too much on welfare. So maybe if they spent less on welfare, they could actually pay for their defense. It's because they may bash the United States, but without the U.S., they'd have to pay for their own defense. So they came up with some agreements on their defense priorities. They came up with plans to defend Poland and the Baltic states from Russia, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's mainly about defending Eastern Europe against Russian aggression and the rest in the Middle East against Turkic aggression, which is kind of awkward given that Turkey's in NATO and was one of the founding members of NATO. But still though, awkward. And hopping over to the op-ed section, there's an article saying that there's an op-ed entitled "Fractured Democratic Fairy Tales," and this little summary caption says, "The bridge between the party's insurgent left and its traditional liberals doesn't exist," because it's basically going into the fact that the elections and whatnot and debates have shown that there's a pretty stark divide between the traditional liberals and the political left. Like liberals are center left, but like the left is like commies and socialists. Although even traditional liberals are a little socialist. So, but the problem is here with that sort of disparity, then it's going to be very hard for them to pick a candidate to unite behind. This has actually been a pretty big problem for presidential candidates throughout history. Like in 1912, there were 3 candidates running for president. There's Taft, a Republican, running for re-election. Wilson, a Democrat, running for election. And then there's Teddy Roosevelt, who had already served 2 terms, but he after 2 terms he let Taft run, and then he wanted to try again to see if he could get a 3rd term. But problem was Taft Roosevelt was much more popular, but Taft controlled much of the party machinery, and back then they didn't really have primaries, they're starting to introduce primaries around that time, but they didn't. But it was still largely decided by party leaders who would become the nominee, and so they picked Taft because he was the incumbent president. But that was the one election in the history of the Democratic and Republican Party where an independent candidate, in this case Roosevelt, got more votes than one of the major party candidates, in this case Taft. So it was Wilson won, but then there's Teddy Roosevelt in 2nd and Taft in 3rd. And so Democrats can't can't get their act together and pick some guy unite behind, be it Warren, Sanders, Biden, whoever, then they could have another Taft Roosevelt election where it's like a very close race and someone barely wins, and but then the other half of the party, dissatisfied with the results, sticks with the candidate that they wanted and could end up giving the election to Trump. Because that's the problem with these kinds of things. Like, when the party doesn't agree on a candidate, it's fine to fight over them until they get nominated. But once you get nominated, you got to stick with your party's candidate. Otherwise, you both are gonna lose the guy you especially don't want winning. The other party, which would happen with Woodrow Wilson. So yeah. And there's another article just below this titled "Get Ready for Contested Conventions." So it's the same thing. It's gonna be up to the superdelegates to decide this. And superdelegates sort of like trying to it was the political party's way of trying to bring back the old system of conventions. Because in the past, it was the party leaders who selected the candidates. Then they started phasing in primaries. Primaries were initially introduced to show hey, look I can win votes. And then they became the main way of selecting candidates. But then they brought back superdelegates so that they could as potential tiebreakers and or just as figureheads. And so the superdelegates are ever since the primary system became the established thing. They've rarely been the deciding outcome in the election, but still they could do a lot. And in this case, superdelegates tend to vote for the more establishment candidates. So if it were to come down to say Biden and Warren, and they needed superdelegates to break a tie, Biden would probably be the nominee, which would anger the party's ultra left and would cause a big lack of unity going into the general election season, and probably put Trump in the White House, much to the chagrin of both traditional liberals and the radical left. Then finally, there's an article saying that Democrats want to get rid of Trump for digging up dirt on arrival, but yet they're doing the exact same thing to prove that he was digging up dirt. Adam Schiff is publishing private records now, which he's not really allowed to do because he doesn't because he's not part of the intelligence network. He's not Trump himself. He has no authority to do this. He's just another congressman. So by trying to release data, trying to comb through everyone's records, he's really he's turned himself into the thing he's trying to fight. I think it was in what's his name, Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. I read the summary of the book. I haven't read the book, but I read the points that Alinsky makes in it, and one of them was one of the rules is blame your opponent for the thing that you do yourself. So Schiff he must have picked up a copy of the book in his spare time, because he's blaming Trump for trying to dig up dirt while he's digging up dirt to prove it. So if he wants to be more credible with the impeachment and convince voters, because the support for impeachment is on the decline right now, but if he wants to bring it back up, then he could at least start by being a little more honest and credible. That's all I got for you this edition of Take It for Soapbox. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great daily content.